Well, good morning again. Thank you for being here. I understand we have some guests from Santa Rosa, so we welcome you. Thank you for spending your morning with us. And now I'm just seeing all kinds of faces that I didn't see a moment ago. I just love all your faces. That's how it is. Good morning as I look out upon you. So the topic today is accountability. And I was realizing I'm always a little anxious when I'm going to talk before you. It's like, who me? It's always kind of like that biblical dream, who me? And yes, you. And so you better go show up. But I was realizing accountability, why I had so many butterflies was a couple of things. I realized this week that one of my first spiritual teachers was Jiminy Cricket. Was it one of yours? You know, I used to just watch him sing and whistle and let your conscience be your guide. And I thought, my conscience be my guide. And so that was instilled in me from more of a cartoon framework, but I sort of lived by that. And then I was looking up conscience in Science of Mind, and I'm thinking, what the heck? Ernest Holmes doesn't mention it. You know, he's got all these, and those of you that have studied Science of Mind know how many names he does for the one. You know, you've got consciousness, subjective, objective, and you've got this and that, and you've got all these forms. And when you're a student of the teaching, you get a little bit, what is he talking about there? And it's because it's only one. And I'm thinking, where's conscience? So, do you have a conscience? Because that's where our focus is going to be today, because that's where your accountability is. It's in your conscience. It's what Jiminy Cricket first taught you. So we can go back to those roots. And the other thing that I realized was in my reflections, and Damien, you read that poem so beautifully, that writing, that inquiry of accountability. You know, we lay down our head at night, and often we don't even realize that those questions of inquiry are going through us, do we? But it's like, did I do my best today? And did I, all of the beautiful moments that he points to that can happen in a day's experience. John O'Donohue is so gifted in pointing right deep into your soul. But in my accountability, I was realizing some of my first issues came from disappointing my mother, which is like, and so what I feel like when I come before you, this is going on and on here, trying to just say this one point. I remember when I was leaving Southern California, and she was throwing me a big party, and I said, I'll bring the watermelon salad. And she goes, that'd be great, So she goes through all this work to create this party for the friends and family as I was leaving Southern California. And at the last minute, I just come in with a big old watermelon. And she said, that's your watermelon salad. And it was just she was so disappointed and so frustrated with me. And what is so interesting, right now she's 93 and she kind of doesn't remember anything, but she remembers that dang watermelon. And she'll go, oh yeah, I remember that. And again, inside of me just shrinks into not good enough. But I was not accountable for something that I had said I would do. I mean, I was halfway there. And so, I feel like a lot of times as I prepare for these talks, I'm sort of like, I did a lot of research and here's my watermelon. And it's going to just kind of come out as we go along. So that's the point of why I was trying to say all that about my beloved mother. But accountability, think about this is doing with our this theme that we have about living our values. So we're trying to create a culture of accountability. So I ask you, where are your reflections on accountability? Because we recognize that it's an obligation or a willingness to accept responsibility and to account for our actions in the world. And so you too have little layers of perhaps Jiminy Cricket wisdom, but also moments of disappointing another. And what did you do? What did you do with that? Did you use it as a gift to turn things around and become a stronger individual and to admit to your unskilled ways? Or did you learn skillful ways of covering it up, telling little white lies, thinking that those won't hurt anybody if I don't take the responsibility for what I've done, if I blame my sister, my brother? You know, how have you handled some of those innocent moments of upbringing, and what have you learned to not do anymore, or somehow subtly you're still doing it? One thing I've noticed a lot with people is they love to exaggerate, just up it by exaggerating by 3 to 5, you know. And I'm thinking, why can't they just say, there was 2 people there, instead of saying, oh, there was about a dozen? You know, there's just this way of just exaggerating. And I'm thinking, where can we say the exact truth? And so you're constantly called upon that. Watch it inside of you where you tend to exaggerate just a little bit, because we're asked to account for all of our actions. We recognize through the teaching that we live, of course, by a law, that we're centered on a principle. And I love Gandhi's work, and in the 9 o'clock talk, I'm going to reference some of Gandhi's wisdom here, because he recognized that to live a spiritual life, we have to have a moral restraint, and we have to live by our own laws. We have to create our own laws. We recognize that the divine, the law of nature, everything follows a law, a sequence, and we have the freedom of choice. That is what is so wonderful about being born as a human being. But in that choice, in that freedom, we have to also create our own laws of being. And so if we cultivate our laws of being and allow it to be done with the heart of love, then we live this sense of accountability and goodness in our world. So we also recognize now the principles of science of mind, they always float in here and help us to impress upon our life a greater way of being. So the law of mind is always bringing form to our words. So we are accountable, and I want to refresh your idea of what is accountability is the subject to having to report, to explain, to justify, to be the one that has to answer to be responsible. So we account for our activities, and we can disclose them in a real transparent manner. And do you? Do you allow yourself to accept responsibility for all your actions and all of your obligations that are entrusted upon you? Are you truly open with one another? Now, when I say you, I'm not doing one of these like my mom. It feels like that right now. But because I'm including myself in that, I have to ask these questions, these deep questions that Damien so beautifully read to all of you. Ask yourself these questions. Am I being willing to accept the responsibility for my choices? It's a key to living out a truly divine spiritual life. You want to be willing to answer for your actions in such a way that your words and your deeds are matched with your spiritual knowing. Often in our surveys, people said what they want from leadership is for anybody standing in this blessed space to be authentic, to walk the talk, to be transparent in such a way that what you hear me say, what you hear Reverend Mary say or a practitioner say, that we have worked with the tools and we offer ourselves to you in the best way we can. And we want you to see us behind closed doors being the same way. That's what being transparent means. And it takes high watch of our own polished heart to be that for one another in a spiritual community. And that's what the gift of creating community and what Christy just joined is this community of people that are willing to stand in that consciousness. There is a phrase of Ernest Holmes. He says, peace comes from the absence of fear, from a consciousness of trust, from a deep underlying faith in the absolute goodness and mercy, the final integrity of the universe in which we live and of every cause to which we give our thought, our time, and our attention. If we would have peace outwardly, we must first realize peace inwardly. Take that idea in deeply. Because if you're feeling out of sorts with your outer world, are you at peace with all that you are saying and being in your own world? Are you deeply, deeply honest? Can people trust you? And when you feel, yes, they can, there's a deep sense of settling into peace. It makes you stronger when you admit to any form of mistake or less than skillful way of being. The words responsibility and accountability are often used interchangeably, and they're very much related, but when someone assumes responsibility for doing something, we expect that person to hold himself accountable for the consequences of his actions. But I wanted to kind of share this idea of looking at these two concepts of responsibility and accountability. One is just responsible to do things right. But when you look more at accountability, you're not only doing things right with regard to the consequences of your actions taken, you own it, right? You own it. How much of your life are you owning? We're asked here to really answer to one another, to focus on truth. And that's what Gandhi so exemplified in his life. Every time I turn to his teachings and read his words and watch his walk, he made sure that even when he found himself preaching a certain truth, but he wasn't really living it, he worked it until he could actually demonstrate that, and his pure essence flowed forth from him. You've heard the story before when the mother asked him to tell her child not to eat chocolate. And he said, well, come back on Friday. And so a week went by and she brought him back, and he told the child, don't eat chocolate. And she said, well, why did that take a week? And he goes, I had to get off of it first. I had to get off of it first. How much of the preaching that we have heard in our lifetime, are we doing that? I ask of you only what I can hold true to my own self. And then we become accountable for our spiritual actions out in the world. So focus on truth. Focus on what your loved ones would want you to do and to be. And you want to share this truth in a place of trust. You want to feel that when you're going to tell your truth, you're in a vulnerable place, aren't you? Because somebody might not take it the way you want them to. You're trying to just get it off your chest. But without any fear in front of you and just love pouring through you, you want to encourage that form of faith and honesty to flow back and forth with even grace. So understand what you do and why, and check in with yourself, and know when you need the support if you're challenged. Don't be afraid to ask for help, to go to see a practitioner or a minister or a counselor or a friend, or speak to your beloveds in your world, to say, I need help here. I'm trying too hard on my own. See when you're not growing, and see where can I really allow the principles of the Science of Mind teaching to really impress themselves upon me. So Gandhi, when he walked his talk in such a way that every moment there was an opportunity for him to be accountable for the way he was in the world. And there was a small story of him trying to get onto a train, and on the platform one of his shoes fell through the crack, and all the people were trying to get his other shoe, and he just said no bother, and he took his other shoe off and threw it down there as well. And they said, well, why did you do that? And he said, it's better for someone to find a pair of shoes instead of just one. And I thought, it's brilliant. It's just brilliant. Every time his actions were those actions that would serve another, right? To take that higher good. How many times have we held back or held on or hoarded when we could be as free and as giving. Give 2 shoes. What a concept. So he has these ideas of being responsible. And his first, for his accountability, is he asks you, what is truth? What is the voice within you telling you? Within ourselves, every wrongdoer knows that already within himself, that he's doing wrong. For untruth cannot be mistaken for truth. Truth and righteousness must forever remain the law of God. This law of God's world of truth in thought, truth in speech, truth in every action. So accountability begins with this deep level of truth. I like one of Yogananda's words of wisdom here, because he says, the moment you speak an untruth, your deep soul knows, and it says, hey there now, you want to go back and try that again? And you think, no, I kind of got away with it. Well, then there's a silence, right? Yogananda reminds you that silence isn't so good when it comes at that time, because there's this soul urge for you to speak the truth, and there's this soul's longing for you to act on that truth. And if you miss that little moment, Yogananda reminds you that then you're on your own. You're on your own. So the other idea of truth, it is your source of character. Gandhi reminds us of that. It's your key to your health. It's your source of health, a source of your character. And how to realize it. Silence is a great help to the seeker for truth. So this is another form of silence. This is that meditative silence. I was reading listening to this beautiful invocation from Naomi Remen when she was trying to open up a workshop, and she talked about the breath and the silence, and she said, in the spiritual practice, she said, take the breath in, take the breath out, but linger at the moment of the time between that last out-breath. And so she leads us into this, and we're all breathing, and then there's this out-breath, and there's this, she said, it's quick, but it's this silent pause. And you actually are doing that spiritual practice usually about 12 times a minute in your ordinary life. We breathe about 12 times a minute. So this is impressing upon you. But there's this silence. There is this potentiality of the soul call right at that moment, of lingering in that out-breath before you speak. And then you can ask yourself, is what I'm about to say going to be helpful in this situation? Is it going to come from the truth? Is it coming from the place in my heart? Or am I trying to manipulate anything out here in my world? Let me listen. Let me linger just a little bit longer in that soul call, in that God way of just deeply listening to the divine wisdom. This will be a key to my true health. So, silence for the seeker of the truth. In the silence, you find a path of clear light. And it can seem at times elusive and maybe deceptive. But if you stay long enough in your spiritual practice, it becomes crystal clear. And our life, this is Gandhi, our life is a quest for truth. We have this proneness to exaggerate, to suppress, to modify truth wittingly or unwittingly. I'm hoping you're not having, as I speak some of the watermelon experience where you just kind of go, oh, that's one. Because I can feel the light in this room going, oh, yes. Oops. Oh, yes. Oops. She poked one of mine. But the idea of your quest for truth, proneness to exaggerate, to suppress, to modify your truth wittingly or unwittingly, he states is a natural weakness of man. And silence is necessary in order to surmount that. See, if we just keep hurrying ourselves along once we've done one of those unskillful patterns of just being, we haven't met our lesson, our opportunity. A man of few words will rarely be thoughtless in his speech. He measures every word. He also Gandhi shares the need of being fearless in this vigilance. Don't ever be afraid to do the right thing. The only time truth is ever really suppressed is when we give in to the fear. Act fearless upon what you believe to be right, and don't deceive yourself with false beliefs. Don't buy into the lazy, ignorant questions. Ask yourself all the time those questions that Damien read so beautifully. Did I? Have I? Whatever it is, you explore your life and give gratitude for a day well lived. But the day is over and you're resting. And that's a soul call, a time to go into your dream world. So finally, Gandhi shares, the supreme value of truth is for you to devote yourself to truth. It will lead to God. You will never, in that knowing, abdicate your authority. You'll take full responsibility for your life and never forfeit it over to someone else. Deep respect and love and devotion can be given to a teacher, but don't abdicate your authority to your spiritual teachers. You can appreciate the divine within them, but honor the divine within you more than anything. Listen to the stirring, the quickening of the truth inside of you. I just finished the opportunity of 2 years with the practitioner students, and over again I kept saying, this is Ernest Holmes' truth. It does not have to be spoon-fed to you to be your truth. Find what quickens you. Find what wakes you up. And if it is aligned with your true nature, your greater good, then live that. Speak that. Teach that. Yeah, thank you. Amen. Yeah. So your life belongs to you in your hands. I welcome the community that comes together to listen to a greater understanding, to see, am I accountable? That's just such a big word, such a word that can have punishment attached to it. But there's no punishment here. There's only awakening. Your life belongs in your hands. You need to take responsibility. Adashanti says that, and I love that. Your life belongs in your hands and not someone else's. Take responsibility. Take responsibility in these current times that we have. Be the one inside feeling peace. Be the one that says, I choose now to see the divine in all beings, no matter what it looks like in the actions, but I choose to hold truth at this time and this on the planet, to be honoring the divinity and to allow myself never to be led into fundamentalism. Never stop questioning. Never stop questioning. Whatever I'm saying up here, and if you have doubt, or if you're not quite sure and you want to explore more, ask. Ask yourself those questions. Don't ever shut down your curiosity. You want to work with these teachings and apply them to your life to reveal truth, to reveal what has been false inside of you. Heck, you can make sliced watermelon just as much as little watermelon balls. So what did it took me 5 minutes to get out of that, but I was in, she remembers it at 93. I've been up here over 45 years. It's like, get over it, Mom. But the idea is to practice with sincerity. I'm not asking us to be all perfect. It just takes courage to practice with sincerity. Be willing to see yourself as you really are, and don't hide. You can't awaken from an illusion of yourself if you're hiding. Those moments of the stillness of that out-breath are those moments of absolute clarity. This is another wisdom of Adashanti. He says, your life All of your life is your path to awakening. By resisting or not dealing with its challenges, you stay asleep to reality. Pay attention to what life is trying to reveal to you. Say yes to its fierce, ruthless, and loving grace. Listen to your soul. It is craving certainty. Be curious, be willing to not know, to ask for guidance, to live in the neighborhood of the true self. The true self. And you know, there's opportunities always before us to take whatever is put before us and to transform it. There is this precious little story of a little boy that was going to, I'm trying to find the little story here. Here it is. So this is about taking what we're given and taking pride in whatever you do. So look at this innocence. A small boy was auditioning with his classmates for a school play. His mother knew that he'd set his heart on being in the play, just like all the other children hoped to, and she feared how he would react if he was not chosen. On the day that the parts were awarded, the little boy's mother went to the school gates to collect her son. The little lad rushed up to her, eyes shining with pride and excitement. "Guess what, Mom?" he shouted, and then said the words that provide a lesson to us all. "I've been chosen to clap and cheer." Isn't that great? When we allow ourselves to be so vulnerable, so honest, and go for the challenge and not be picked for what we thought, but just raise and praise ourselves for being the ones that get to clap and cheer. I love the truth of that story. It makes us accountable for all of our actions. So in closing, I wanted to briefly read a few of these questions. For you, where did your eyes linger today? Where have you been blind? Where have you been hurting and no one's noticing? What have you read? What thoughts are visiting you? What differences have you noticed in those that are closest to you? How have you neglected yourself? How are your conversations? Are they deep? Are they filled with truth? Are they honest? Have you exposed yourself to something different, the risk of doing something different? Have you allowed yourself to receive love? And have you felt yourself today? Did you arrive here? Sometimes I arrive and I got my shy persona so in charge that I have to beat through that to greet you and to say hello to you, because I'm actually quite shy on the inside. But I go through that because love pushes my soul. And I want us to be in that kind of community. So how have you felt most yourself? What reached you today? Are you being seen today? What are you avoiding? What evidence is showing up to let God know that you cherish this one and perfect life? Join with me in a prayer started by our founder, Ernest Holmes. Only good flows from me. So close your eyes. Go into that moment of the sweetness of the out-breath, of the truth of who you are. Let your whole being relax and feel anointed. That you've entered a chamber, a sanctuary of holy ground. That this room, do you know that this room is invested so many years? For me personally, I have taught yoga here, and the ohms and the chants of peace that we have expressed week after week, linger in the walls, linger in the ethers. The beautiful music that has been played here, the many prayers that have been spoken here. Think about the holy ground, the sanctuary of truth. This space has been accountable to you. So Ernest Holmes invites us to allow every part of our heart to respond to the warmth of love, to allow your mind to embrace that love, and to recognize that no life is complete without this deep, deep love. We're breathing. We're going deeper. Ernest Holmes. I believe that God is love. I believe that love is at the center of everything. Therefore, I accept love as the leading power of life. I permit love to reach out from me to every person I meet. I believe that love is returned to me from every person I meet. I trust the guidance of love because I believe it is the power of good in the universe. I feel that love is flowing through me to heal every situation. Every situation I meet helps every person I come in contact with. Love opens the way before me and makes it perfect, straight, and glad. Love converts the commonplace into that which is wonderful, converts weakness into strength, fear into faith. Love is the all-conquering power of spirit. I walk in confidence with love, which I feel to be everywhere present, within, around, and through me. In that love, I am safe, I am secure, I am cared for. So be it, and so it is. So we take those words of prayer and we allow them to enrich the field of our heart. And we linger longer in the words that we choose to express ourselves, and we become accountable for our actions, for our heart, for our love, for our attention to one another. We need each other in these times to lift it up, to be the one, to be the change. So I give thanks for the love in this room, for the wisdom and the shoulders upon which we stand upon that have been expressed in so many ways from so many teachers. We stand on the shoulders of that and we see who we are in that knowing. And we move through this day articulating our way in such a way that we make a difference. So thank you, God, for a community that shows up. I give thanks for that, and so it is. Thank you.